We were just going around the room doing some introductions, so hopefully you have done so as well in the chat. Jason, if you are on, we can hand it over to you for a presentation today.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Can you see me? And then I will share my screen here in a second. Dun, dun, dun.
Yep, you look good.
Oh, great. That's a surprise. Okay, so all right, can you see the red screen there? The red slide?
Yep, looking good.
Okay, great. All right, well, thanks for having me. I'll do a little introduction and then probably chat for about 15 minutes or so, and then open it up to Q&A for another, say, 10, 15 minutes if you'd like. I'm Jason Bear. I'm with Adobe. I come to Adobe by way of Marketo. So I did work for Marketo for 3 to 4 years, from 2017 on. And currently I run the value engineering group. And basically what my team does is we help quantify the value of, say, a Marketo investment. So, if you're spending X on Marketo, we try to quantify and project what is the value that you're receiving or the return of an investment. We do this for existing customers as well as prospective Adobe customers. We'll talk a little bit about value today, but that's a little bit about me. I'm based in Southern California, and I run a team of 5 people. So that's me. So before we get started, I have just a quick question. I guess there's no video, so I won't see this. So it's kind of a rhetorical question, I suppose. But how many of you have worked on a project that you weren't able to finish for reasons outside your control? Hopefully, well, not hopefully, but I imagine that some of you have come into this situation. And what we really want to talk about today are some best practices and some concepts that I've observed with both Marketo and Adobe customers to help drive successful project plans, to quantify the value of your success so that you can share that with your fellow executives, and how to build roadmaps for successful Marketo and just technology projects in general. And the genesis for this, just one quick data point, is McKinsey, for instance, did a study back in 2019, and they identified that 70% of projects either were not completed or did not achieve the goal that they set out to achieve. So that is staggering. So when it comes to these digital transformation projects, which certainly Marketo and Adobe are typically a part of, that's a really high number, and that has motivated us at Adobe to think about how can we help drive and how can we share ideas around getting success from your digital transformation projects. And that's exactly what we'll be talking about right here. So let me share one kind of concept with you, and then I'll pause for questions. So regarding how to get to project success, I'll share a simple concept that I'm sure you've all heard of, and then dig in a bit deeper. So, we're big fans of the crawl, walk, run approach. And we've added a 4th layer, which is take off. And that's when you really, really see the success that you set out to, and even then some, right? So in a crawl, walk, run approach, some of the ways we've seen companies roll this out successfully. Let's take Marketo, for instance. So from a crawl perspective, to me, that's really getting the database set up, getting it synced with Salesforce or Dynamics, getting a few campaigns going, and really just proving out that the technology and the solution is now generating leads and doing what it's supposed to do. Wrong way. From a walk perspective, this is now setting up your nurture and your trigger campaigns and really getting to the meat of what Marketo, whatever the tech is supposed to do, and starting with some personalization tactics. And I think that would most likely be through setting up some more bespoke nurture and trigger campaigns. From a run perspective, this is where we really see, and some of you may have seen this as almost like a maturity curve, a maturity model of Marketo or whatever technology it is. And there are typically consistent themes throughout here. But from a run perspective, this is where you really have your reporting and your analytics firing on all cylinders, and you reach that holy grail of the 360-degree view of your customer, whether that's a consumer with a considered purchase, or you leveraging ABM so that you really understand the companies that you're targeting and all the people associated. So now we have a 360-degree view of the customer, solid analytics, and reporting, and also potentially real-time personalization. Specifically, if you're in a B2C business, that's something that really matters to be able to respond in a matter of milliseconds. So these are just examples of crawl, walk, run, and then takeoff would be not only meeting the KPIs and goals that you set out to, but even exceeding that further. Had a few other ideas on this slide, but I just want to pause for any questions on the crawl, walk, run approach. Any questions or comments? So let me just take it a step further. From a crawl perspective, some creative ideas that you could consider if you're looking at Marketo or other tech. From a crawl perspective, you could also do a proof of concept or a pilot. So in this economic environment, capital and budget is hard to come by. I imagine some of you are running into that. And it's hard to get budget to deploy new tech. So I've seen customers successful in doing a proof of concept or a pilot where they say, hey, let's bring it in. Let's see if we can generate, say, 100 leads or $1 million in revenue over, say 6 months or a year. And if we prove that out, then you can go to your CFO and ask for that budget because you've proven that the return on that, say, $100,000 investment has generated more revenue than the actual investment. So proof of concepts or pilots are a great way to really get through that crawl stage. And maybe that's just with, a 1-year commitment. Walking, hopefully most folks are familiar with. That's just getting it off the ground. And then, getting to the run stage is definitely challenging. Marketo has some pretty robust analytics and personalization capabilities, but I would challenge that to get to run and take off, you might even go beyond Marketo and bring in some best of breed technologies to augment what Marketo does good, but is not its specialty. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Pause here for a second if there are any questions, and then I'll move into, as I move into the next slide. Okay, so this is definitely I would say my area of focus or even area of expertise, and I hope some of these ideas are new for you. And I want to give you something actionable that you can really go back to the business and leverage if you so choose. So one of the reasons why I actually transitioned my career at Adobe a couple of years ago to this group, this value engineering group, was because every time I met with customers, I would get the question, like, Marketo is great, it's a leader, this is great technology, no doubt. But if I write a check for X dollars for Marketo, like, what can I expect in return? Like, how many more leads can I get my salespeople? how much is my conversion rate going to increase? At the end of the day, how much more revenue is this going to produce if I move from an ESP to say Marketo? Like, what does that mean for my business? And that question was so like impactful to me that was the impetus to move into the value engineering group and become a leader in the space, because I wanted to help companies figure out the answer to that question. So as this pertains to, say, a user of Marketo, what we've captured here, and this is a tool we built, which is simply PowerPoint and Excel. We captured here what we believe to be 4 KPIs or metrics that are typically important to Marketo users. More often a B2B company. And basically we have these 4 levers and we have the calculations behind it, but basically we're looking at a funnel for the most part. How can we get, how can we run acquisition? How can we get new customers, new prospects in the door using email? And in this case, it actually quantifies how Marketo can help do that for a sample customer. You can plug in your numbers and figure that out for yourself, for your own situation. So how can we drive more traffic via personalized emails? So that's the top of the funnel. How can we increase lead generation by improving the conversion rate of those customers at the top of the funnel into customers? And there are 3 different sales stages that we focus on, super common, in B2B: visit to lead, lead to opportunity, and opportunity to close. And in the model we created, it's actually, I believe it does focus on all 3 stages, so that how can we improve our efforts at each stage? And some of you may know my terminology is probably outdated, but like life cycle modeler and success plan analyzer actually help you measure inside Marketo how you're doing, moving the customers from stage to stage to stage. So we bring them in, we convert them. Now they're customers. How can we increase the basket size or the average revenue per account? And that would typically be through cross-sell and upsell. How can we use Marketo to provide recommendations, product recommendations, to drive more cross-sell, upsell? So those 3 are driving the revenue side of the equation. On the efficiency side of the equation, or cost savings, we also look at, before Marketo, how long did it take to create a campaign all the way through? How much time does that take with Marketo? And hopefully you can quantify that it's a much more efficient process with Marketo, therefore resulting in time savings or cost savings. So to net this out, 4 different areas common to improve. Customers often measure these after we talk with them, and therefore quantify the value of their improved metrics from Marketo. Don't want to scare you, but behind this, so you can actually double click on the 1950 or the 19,500, and those cells in PowerPoint then open up the actual calculations behind this, and you can update most commonly just the yellow cells, which then backs into and brings it back into the main numbers here. So any comments on any folks who are successful in quantifying the value of your tech investments, or any questions on this model and using this to track things going forward? Hopefully you find that helpful. I think
We've got one here. We've got one here live, Jason. 1 second.
Oh, great. Cool.
I'll relay it. Why the number for cross-sell, upsell? About the calculations.
Can you elaborate why the number for cross-sell, upsell is so high? What's the calculation there?
9 times out of 10, I usually say these are absolutely sample numbers. Don't worry about the numbers, but it's a very valid question. So whether that's a high or low, let me answer it directly. Why is it so high? Besides the fact it's a dummy number, you know, just we did like 130 business cases last year, and we often see that Marketo or other Adobe tools, cross-sell upsell is really low-hanging fruit for us, and it's really an area where we can drive, whether that's with Marketo or Adobe Target, which is a personalization tool. We believe this is commonly a great opportunity for companies, but you know, we'd have to plug in your company's numbers to see if that would really be the case. Let's dig into the details here. So basically, sample customer, they have 50,000 customers. Okay. We have seen that the industry average of the number of customers that typically do upgrade is 28%. That's what we see as a benchmark. If you want to go in here and we typically see it's only 5%, or we see that it's 35%, you go in, you update that number to a realistic figure, and then you multiply it by the average revenue for those customers. In this case, is $10,000. And that's how you get that number. We believe that Marketo in this case can, and this is the variable in the equation that we're projecting. If we were to improve the average revenue for each one of those 50,000 accounts, we believe you can increase that by 0.5%. In this case, that would result in $700,000. So just the inherent math of a lot of customers, pretty big ARPA, little bit of improvement results in a big impact. But to the person that asked the question, that would absolutely depend on how many customers do you have? What's your ARPA? How many do you see that are upgraded? And that may result in a big number or a small number. But in this case, it's pretty big comparatively. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you.
Glad. Okay, good. Good. Other questions on this? Go back to here. I mean, I would say, you know, generating more traffic from email, you know, that's a good lever. I can't say that is like a game changer for companies, but I think improving conversion rate and driving cross-sell upsell, if that's a big part of your business, I think those are some really good areas to impact. Are there other levers in other areas that can be quantified? Of course, any area can be quantified. And if they're not here in this model, I would say I would provide 2 suggestions. Number one, you know, if you are a Marketo customer, you know, work with your rep, and your rep will likely have access to the value engineering team. Depending on which, you know, sales group they're in, most groups all do have value engineers that support them, which means that they could potentially quantify this for you. That's what my team does every day. If that's not applicable, there are also some pretty great tools just by Googling, or dare I say ChatGPT or Google Bard. I'll leave that up to you whether you want to use that or not, but I certainly have tested it, and they can certainly provide some benchmarks as well. Just obviously you'll want to pressure test that and make sure it's accurate information, and that the AI is not hallucinating about projecting $1 trillion return on Marketo. So be careful there. But it's certainly something that it does have the capability to do. Any other questions on value? Feel free to interrupt, but I'm gonna keep going. So I understand that there was some interesting curiosity about beyond Marketo. You know, Adobe bought Marketo quite a while ago now, and things are pretty well integrated. So I think there was some curiosity around like, what else? How does Marketo fit into the grand scheme of Adobe? And promise I'm not doing a sales pitch here by any stretch, but I do want to compare and contrast a few different things and the way that I think about it, and a lot of people at Adobe think about the comparison. So to me, Marketo is a platform, and as we know, you can build web pages, email content. So you've got content you can execute across most of the channels using Marketo's core capabilities. You probably have some semblance of some analytics, reporting, and dashboard that come with it. You can do A/B testing. You have a database of contacts. So I pretty much just said all those capabilities that are Marketo cover about 80% of this page. And this page is the bulk of Adobe's products for enterprise customers. So my philosophy is Marketo does most of this, but if you're really looking to double down and really supercharge your content, really build top-notch websites, web pages, mobile apps, and whatnot, or do really high-end testing and personalization, or really bring in a robust database, bring in all of your data sources together, then you could consider expanding into some of these other Adobe products. The way I would think about it is, which area do you think would be most valuable to your business? Do you believe content is the area to invest? Or is it more your reporting, your data and your insights, stitching all your data sources together? It might be personalization and testing. It might be productivity, basically running a really streamlined content supply chain process. Based on those areas, these are the Adobe tools that fit into each one of those buckets. To double click on two that I think are the most valuable for this group, Marketo Measure, in case you're not familiar, this was previously known as Visible. And speaking about value, talk about a great tool to measure the value of your investments. Visible basically measures the attribution of all your marketing efforts, and how is that driving, more sales and more revenue. And it basically grants credit to each one of your marketing efforts, so that like in a, let's say 100%, what percent was the blog or the event or the marketing campaign lead to the sale. So you can really fine tune and optimize your marketing efforts based on the Marketo Measure attribution tool. I call that out because it's very common for Marketo users to leverage that as next level reporting. The other one that kind of jumps off the page is Workfront, which that's a tool that we acquired. And basically that helps drive a content supply chain so that you can measure you basically log and measure every step of building content or building a campaign, so that when you're done with a campaign, you can look back and say, oh, it took us 2 hours for this, 4 hours for that. It ultimately took us 60 hours. I bet we could run it more efficiently. The next campaign you build, you fine tune each one of those areas, and it helps you just streamline and optimize the content and campaign creation process over time, because now you have data. You actually have data and a process that you're measuring every time. That's Marketo Measure Workfront. Spirits Managers are content management system, commerce targets personalization and testing, and CDP basically brings all the data sources together for a unified profile. Any questions on any of those? And if you do, I would encourage you to reach out to your rep. You reach out to me after the call, or feel free to ask questions right now as well. But that's an overview of the kind of the bigger Adobe ecosystem, if you will. I have a question, if someone live could help me. How many of you have heard of or used Firefly? Like most people, not so much. Some people, I'm just kind of curious.
We're getting some nods and some curiosity.
Okay,
Curious nods.
cool. Well, yeah, check that out if you get the chance. Just Google Adobe Firefly. Oh, cool. It's easily accessible on the website, and basically Firefly is currently it's a free tool where it works just like Dolly or Midjourney if you used any of those, where you can type in a text prompt and it will generate the image or content on the fly, and it's basically pulling from Adobe stock. And what makes it unique is everything it's pulling from, we have licenses for, or it's public domain. So it won't be a situation where it's like, hey, draw a painting in the style of Andy Warhol, or an image, like Ansel Adams, and then there's like a lawsuit down the line because you basically scraped, their data and their style. This is all like legit legal content that it's pulling from, but it's a pretty slick way to generate content and possibly save you some time in your marketing efforts. And we had like 100 million users like in the first 2 months or so. So I think it was the most popular Adobe release, I believe, of all time. So it's really, really cool stuff. I encourage you to check it out. And wrapping up, and it looks like we are wrapping up on time as well. Also wanted to include a blueprint for if you're rolling out MSI or ABM or whatever technology it is. Definitely encourage like building a roadmap, a Gantt chart like this, where you have objectives set with a specific time frame, and you can even attach here the value realized so that you're hitting your KPIs, you're hitting your goals. Going back to the first slide, and avoid those projects that McKinsey caught as not hitting goals or just never finished, and so that you can post some great wins for your business. So that's all the content I had. If appropriate, I'm glad to share the deck if that might be helpful, and if there are any lingering questions, glad to answer those as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Anyone live have any questions? Nothing here. Anyone virtual? And if you want to put it in the chat, or you feel free to unmute if you've got any questions for Jason.
Oh, I'm gonna look at the chat here real quick. So, yeah, not a question, but just for, I believe it's Marshall, just to clarify. So, the real-time CDP, you're absolutely right. It's for both. So for clarification, the real-time CDP takes, basically ingests all of your data sources, aggregates them together for a unified customer profile, so that if I'm a customer of company XYZ, they're not like 3 Jason Bears in the database and I'm getting all these disparate marketing messages. That way it's all consistent. And once you have that unified profile, that allows you, yes, to execute in virtually real-time personalization, so that when I'm on the website, you can get these personalized messages to my profile. So it's definitely for real-time personalization, as well as the single data source. So good point. Any other questions in the chat or live? Otherwise, I think I'm good to go.
Does that only?
I would say, does that only work with Experience Manager?
Oh, for
Personalization?
Great question. So the real-time CDP is surprisingly like kind of open source. So absolutely it would work with any content manager. So definitely not just for AEM. But what's interesting is like it stitches the data together and it gets it ready for that real-time execution. You can actually do the email, and by no means with this group am I endorsing this, but you can actually execute like on Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Eloqua. Like we actually have plugins with the other providers to execute on competing email providers. And we did that just to be customer friendly. Like, look, if you have a massive instance of Marketing Cloud, like, look, we don't want to get in the way. You can execute on whatever means you'd like. So I say that just to share that it is more open than you might consider. And certainly you can use any CMS for that.
Lots of interesting nodding happening here live.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, indeed.
Another thing I'm curious about is just the graph you showed with all the different tools, like none of those really address ABM and like take your its thoughts on like where Marketo is going.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got one
Like,
more.
offset providers like six.
Yeah, we've got one more question about the graph that you showed of kind of everything that's under the Adobe umbrella, everything that's going on there. And then what was the next part of that question?
There's nothing really around ABM specifically. So what is Adobe thinking to do for Marketo in order to keep competing with tools like Success?
Yeah, so she was wondering about ABM specifically, with what they're doing with Marketo to compete with other tools like Success.
Success.
Oh, 6 cents.
Sixth Sense, thank you.
Yeah. So I guess this is the one question that qualifies like a little outside of my comfort zone and a little bit of speculation, but I'll answer it anyways. So, Marketo for a few years now, does have an ABM module. I'm sure you're aware of that, and that just really looks at things from an account view versus just the contact or lead level view. And I don't believe that necessarily meets your needs or addresses what 6 Sense is doing. So I think that's half of my answer is we have that. And I imagine they're developing that and evolving that over time, although I couldn't speak to anything around the roadmap there. But I think the other part of the equation that you might want to think about it or look at is, the real-time CDP is part of Adobe's Experience Platform, which is a massive, massive investment from Adobe. And it's really kind of the direction that we're headed. So if I were to bet, I would say that keep an eye on the real-time CDP, keep an eye on the B2B application of that, and you might see that there's some really interesting cutting edge ABM applications that come with that. So Marketo ABM, check, we have it, had it for a while, evolve, but I would encourage any Marketo user just to keep an eye on that CDP, because I think that's going to bring in some really interesting functionality as well over time that could address ABM. So not a great answer, but that's basically what I could share based on my knowledge.
Thank you.
For sure.
Say, I don't think no other questions live unless anybody virtually has a question yet.
That is all I see on the chat. So well, thanks for giving me the time. I appreciate it. I hope you walked away with a few nuggets here, and just glad to participate and share what we've seen from the Adobe perspective.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. We'll cut you loose. If everyone on the line wants to stay, we can talk through some resources for you, and we have some trivia questions as well.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for having me. I am going to drop. Bye. Talk to you.
Okay. So we want to just highlight a new feature for everybody. So new to your instance, on August 1st, you'll see a tile called Engagement Canvas. So Engagement Canvas was known as Journeys before. This will solve for a lot of these problems that you see on the screen here. It'll just help you visualize your programs, campaigns, help with user adoption, and just putting a picture to things if you're showing to like leadership or investors, things like that. Okay, and then just some opportunities we wanted to make you all aware of, some education and opportunities. We've got, Adobe has a Marketo Engage Champion program. They're taking nominations for that right now. So if you want to be an Engage Champion, I encourage you to apply. This deck will be sent out with the links for you to do that. There's also a webinar coming up about Engagement Canvas here on the right. It's called Journeys because they haven't updated the lingo yet. We're kind of the first to hear about it. So if you'd like to learn more, you can tune into this webinar. And they also have a Champion Deep Dive webinar series. So if you want to learn more about the topics of the moment, feel free to check out this link. You can see the schedule and agenda and register for these webinars. Also, an offering from Adobe is to become certified, a resume booster, you know, kind of get acknowledgement for the work you're putting into your Adobe experience. So there's 3 different levels. You can click here to learn more. Adobe has a bunch of courses and learning material, as well as the links to go through and take an online test. I know we all love doing that so much. All right, now for the fun part. So I've got some trivia questions. I also have some $25 gift cards. So I've got one for the live audience and one for the virtual audience. We'll start with my first question. What was Marketo named originally when it was founded in 2006? Feel free to raise your hand, virtual group. We've got crickets here live. Anybody virtual? Yeah. What's that?
I can cheat.
You can cheat, yeah. So it was originally called Elastic Intelligence. Yeah. Okay, we'll go easy here, just so I can give away this gift card. Name a feature that's available in your Marketo instance on August 1st.
The journey.
Yes, Engagement Canvas. Thank you. Someone was paying attention. Okay. What is greater question? What is greater, the max number of tokens you're allowed in an email or people in this room?
Which, for the virtual people who
Yeah.
can't see it.
For your virtual attendees, the number of people in this room is about 12. I'm not good at math, so don't quote me. Oh, we've got a typer. Kylie.
Tokens.
Yes, you are correct. So you're allowed 40 tokens in an email program. We'll have a gift card coming your way as well. One last question. How many streams are you allowed per engagement program? What do we hear?
25.
25, that's correct, yes. All right, thank you for playing and fulfilling my dreams of being a trivia host.
You did great.
All right. So I think for the rest of the meeting, we can just open it up to general marketing automation questions, learning lessons, info share. If anyone has any burning questions just broadly that you'd like to ask your peers, we're happy to facilitate that. Or if you've learned something really cool, we want to know about it. We asked, is anyone currently using any Adobe add-ons, tools, platforms besides just Marketo? We've got someone in the audience using Visible or Marketo Measure. And how has your experience with that been so far? Complicated. How so?
Over the last year as well, so a lot part of the business, tactics and strategies that are working now. So yeah, it's just a lot of fine tuning and a lot of maintenance there that I don't think the team expects.
So rush adoption and, company metamorphosis and not having the manpower to keep up and make the tweaks within Marketo Measure to keep up with it.
Yeah,
Okay, so you have a partner that's helping you optimize. Okay.
because it's just
Mhm. Sure.
Visible is one of those tools too that kind of sheds a light on the areas that may not be working well on the marketing automation or RevOps side, especially when Marketo and Salesforce too. So kind of a lot of visible implementation. There's the initial implementation, and then there's the backtrack of this report isn't looking correct, and then you follow the paper trail. And it's usually something you're doing on the CRM or the map side of the marketing automation platform that you may not be doing or just not be doing consistently.
Agreed.
That causes those visible implementations to be.
Yeah, so
Fuzzy
it's something
sometimes.
key too. And we've got, lucky enough to have a marketing analyst. Being a specialist on. But having her a partner with our MOPS team to work on the visible stuff. Because she sees the end result. She sees how it affects, affects things all the way downstream into her reporting. So she has a vested interest, obviously, to help us direct everything to the best, but keep changing.
So if your house isn't in order, your CRM is messy, your data's dirty, you're not going to get what you want to see out of visible. To
I
summarize that.
think our app dev team calls it crap in, crap out.
Yeah.
Crap in, crap out.
Yeah, no amount of tools is gonna solve for that.
Anyone on the line using additional Adobe products? That you want to share an experience about, or is there a product that you're curious about and you'd like to get other people's perspective about? Someone said Firefly. Is anyone using Firefly? You are.
Oh,
Kelsey's using Firefly.
Same with the Illustrator beta and the Photoshop beta, that if anybody's on Instagram Reels, all the generative stuff that's happening in Photoshop. So cool, but also really nice for even removing backgrounds for, just the little content pieces that you're like, hey, I just need this. Adobe Express also has their beta and has Firefly integrated into it. So you don't even have to create another login. You can just start using that. So when you're like, oh, I love Canva, that's their answer to Canva. And then they're integrating it with Bard too, as the big AI company that bought out Firefly. So it'll be interesting to see what else happens. We use Copy.ai for a lot of our content creation. And email copy, but that's kind of the next layers. We're interested to see it take our style
Yeah.
and then change it, because right now you can just text prompt it, which as part of this meeting, we can always do. This is my screen share that I can always just pull it up and go, hey, here's a live demo. We can just prompt it on a few things just for fun. Because it does get down the rabbit hole, but I'm like, as far as business use, I haven't gotten it perfected yet where I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But I can see it. Like our COO was like, oh, I want a new Teams background. And so he sent me to write a portrait version of a vineyard. And I was like, oh, I could just use generative AI to make this widescreen. And so I was like, I'm just going to do this. Did it in like 30 seconds. And I was like, here you go. Here's your new background. And he was like, that was fast. And I was like, yep, don't have to know how to do it.
Okay, wait, are you saying only if you have Firefly and Photoshop, like using that together?
You can, right now, Photoshop is the only one that can extend into the generative, like expanding your canvas space.
Yeah.
Firefly can do the text to image, they can do a text effect. And then they're working on vector recoloring, I think is their latest one.
Huh.
But there's 6 different things that they're gonna do, so it's
That's all
it's-
free.
it's all free.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
really, really interesting. 'Cause I'd say about 15% of my day is just creative, so.
I hope you virtual people could hear all that because it's way over my head and too much to regurgitate, but big fan of Firefly.
Content imagery, yeah.
Yeah, essentially, the person who sent you out this meeting invite, if you want to chat me about anything Firefly, you let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a Firefly enthusiast if you want to learn more.
Copy.ai is what it's called. And so it links in with ChatGPT-4. So it takes that database, but then it has the extra SOC 2 type 2, which for non-cybersecurity nerds, which are the people that I get to talk to all day, it's essentially making sure, because any of the customer data you're putting into an AI becomes public domain as part of their database. So to make sure they're not just going to ChatGPT and going, here's all the stuff on my Marketo instance, and it's going, great, now I can learn from this.
Yeah.
good and bad things. So it's nice to have something that's giving us the content, but it's giving us that extra little bit of like, hey, by the way, and then it also has an info base. So you can upload PDFs, you can upload brand voice, you can upload all of that. So I can literally just use those hashtags and say, hey, like essentially I launched part of a golf classic program within Marketo today. Got 6 emails done in 2 hours because I was like, content, go. And I can just use the hashtag and it'll put in all of the event and it'll remember everything in that chat.
Insane.
Is that a paid tool or is that?
That one we do pay for. It has free of a certain word count. So if you wanted to test it out and just go, hey, how does this work? The info base and the chat, I believe, is a paid thing, but it's pretty low cost for a team because we run on a pretty low marketing budget and
That's
that one's pretty.
We were just talking about, like, where is this gonna head? And there's an effective
Yeah.
tool. That's incredible.
That's amazing.
But you have to be so careful, and she and I were talking before, and too, we both work in security companies and
Yeah.
cybersecurity, and like, you don't wanna just put your email content or your white paper in
Yeah.
ChatGPT, because then you're helping your competition and everybody else, and you're
Yeah.
just informing that AI bot.
Yep.
Scary.
Right, one of those things that you don't want to be the leak either that
Yeah.
puts some API for something and then like,
First, and there's gonna be one person at some point with an article somewhere where person puts sensitive data.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I can't remember, was it Samsung? There was some big company, they did it. It's
So
already
it's already
happened.
happened.
Yeah, then you're like, because it makes sense. You sit down at your desk and you're like, yeah, I'll just get it done. I'll put in what I need. And then you're like, if you wouldn't put this in a customer facing email.
Yeah.
Maybe don't put it in ChatGPT or keep it generic enough to go give me an outline and then fill in what you need. Because it's the same way with code. That was the other big, right, concern is that
Yeah.
you can do coding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is nice even with Marketo that, right,
You
let's
can
say that
code
your
it like
image, is out of bounds. And you're like, it's not responsive. I've taken the HTML code and been like, fix this so the image is
Yeah.
responsive. And it's like, here you go. And I know enough about HTML to be dangerous, quote unquote, that I'm like, I don't know that I could make that on my own,
Yeah.
but I can look at it enough to know it's not malicious before I put it back into Marketo.
My colleague and I, who's on the line, tested some code from Marketo and put it in Marketo and it works. I mean, it will
Oh,
create an entire responsive.
I guess that's our next topic.
yeah.
I saw something on LinkedIn though, that was my favorite, that was like, in order for us to be replaced, the client or customer would have to accurately describe what they want. And I was like, my job is still safe. Okay.
What is it that you do? Yeah.
Right? But we've had that discussion. We have a podcast that I sit on at work and essentially we asked a bunch of the cybersecurity guys, because I was like, yeah, Tin had this for me. Like, tell me what I'm doing wrong because I would have no idea.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting to go through with them and have them be like, this is all like the compliance stuff. And that'll be the next thing is, right?
Oh,
We have
yeah.
HIPAA.
Yeah.
That'll be the next thing for businesses. You have to be compliant with what you're putting into AI.
Oh, God, it's.
Yeah.
And how do you even-
They can't keep up with
The
it.
Wild
How do you
West.
police that?
Well, and that's just it, is if you're not documenting it, which my favorite quote from, he's a virtual CISO and then GRC compliance,
Yeah.
is he's like, if you're not documenting it, you didn't do it. And I was like, oh dang, so I was talking with Sarah earlier, and I was like, we use Monday.com, and so now everything I do, I'm like, if I didn't document it, I didn't do it. So I was like, dang, so even when I've been training on a new marketing associate, I've had to document everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so we also use Scribe, which is another AI tool that can, but essentially my favorite was when we were talking with the CEO of our company and he was like, spell check is AI. We've been using it. It's just different and it's a bigger database, but also don't be an idiot about it. Or you're like, oh, that's the really harsh way of putting it, but
Yeah.
you can do really cool things just with all these different tools because they can plug in on top of anything. That's what it's nice to see when he was talking about Firefly, going, hey, we didn't just go to Instagram and take. Because I was a freelance illustrator also in a past life. So I was like, oh, that's concerning.
Yeah.
Because if I put it on social media, that's public domain then.
Yeah.
So it's nice to know that what they're sourcing from is people who are like, yes, I know that you're going to do that. So that when you're running then at Google Ads, somebody doesn't hit your inbox and go, what you do, and you're like, yeah, between all the cybersecurity things, and you don't want to be liable for anything or be yeah.
And I can say with the, the cookieless future stuff that we all think about when it comes to Marketo, Adobe's other tools in the Adobe Experience Platform and real-time CDP. They're really answering that. That's really powerful in terms of those profiles and gathering like first-party data, stitching together profiles, and really good data governance. So that's definitely way of the future in terms of like, it's all out there being roadmapped and really robust products. So, here's the answer.
Isn't that CDP platform pretty expensive though?
Very, very cool tool.
It is, yes.
In that summit, but it is quite
It's-
expensive.
It's off the charts in terms of its capabilities,
But
but yeah,
capabilities and the potential is
because it can link to everything, like you said. It's, I mean,
the learning curve. Well, like if you're at Summit, you're demoing it, it's easy to follow their prompts, but I don't know if I'd be able to jump in there. I can look at Marketo and kind of teach myself how to send an email. That one would probably take some kind of like trying to teach yourself Salesforce and
I wonder if in like 3 to 5 years, if they'll do pricing tiers, even some things.
probably, and I think over, 3 to 5 years, they'll have like the user experience down and the education down, so it'll be easier to adopt and technology will be farther advanced, where as Adobe is rolling out these new products, it'll be easier to adopt them. Just like it'll be easier to adopt AI in another 10 years, it'll just be second nature to everyone.
Yeah, and I wonder if that'll be more of like a joint venture between like sales ops and
Yes.
Marshall, you asked about CDP. Is that something that Kimball's kicking around? If you're not in a position to answer, that's fine. Any other burning questions from anybody?
Does anybody use Sales Insights and love it? Because we've been looking at it, but essentially our sales and marketing communication it's fine. Talking to a remote marketer, so I'm like, it's fine, but it could be better. And we've been wondering if it's we have a business development team that makes just all of the outbound calls, and then essentially a lot of our salespeople are transitioning into some new roles that are more opportunity-based. So we were like, with that team of 3, they were technically under the umbrella of my boss. So they're not quite their own salespeople.
I love it. I think when it's implemented correctly and it's piloted with the right people, I think it's phenomenal. And there actually are new features that have been rolled out recently to even improve it. So I would say.
I agree. I was highlighting it with like your top 3 sales people who are the most like tech savvy or willing to try.
They'll love it.
Get them on board and then.
Your thing that you're like, the people who don't freak out about change, I'm gonna use you.
Yeah.
But I think it's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Good changing. That's my revenue.
Yeah, everything's cool when it's done right.
Awesome. Yeah, it's kind of like seeing all like the slicks and everything, and I'm like, does it do the things
Yes.
that they're telling you? Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Absolutely.
Those things.
Yeah, especially if you're smaller and you don't have like a robust tech stack with other things like 6 Sense and stuff that are giving you that customer data. But yeah, I mean, that provides those insights right there. So your CRM for the rep to see.
Awesome. That'd be great. Yeah, because right now what we use as our CRM is ConnectWise Manage, which is a ticketing system built for managed service providers. So essentially that team is just pulling up like a text ticket and then logging a call manually and then making opportunities that way. And I was like, that would be so nice for them to be able to have something that's a little bit more of a dashboard look. So I'm seeing a lot of nodding that's telling me that I'm like, okay, we had the right hunch there. So thank you.
Is anybody else doing the beta of the journeys? The new, what do you call it?
Engagement Canvas. August 1st. Yeah, we saw it in one of our clients' instance, actually. Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Register for early.
Yeah, no, our team is betaing it. I just
Yeah.
curious if anybody else was.
Yeah, we just heard about it like 2 weeks ago. So how's it going?
From what my team has told me, it's okay. It's better than nothing. It's better. I mean, we've been wanting and hoping for some visualization like this for a long time. We've been doing this manually with their diagram tools ourselves. But they were hoping it would do a little bit more than what it does. That it wouldn't just be a visualization tool, but that you could actually like move things around
Yeah.
a little bit. And
Yeah.
instead of doing it a different way, just working in a visual way, but it's really just for.
The UI could use a little bit of work. Yeah.
You can tweak things from within there, can't you? Like up on the upper right, like change your lists and
Very.
it's got limited.
I think that they mentioned in that meeting that because it's still under development and they said that their timeline was pushed up. And so I think that that's a little bit as they're like, we realize that that should be a feature,
Yeah.
but because they wanted to get it
Hopefully it's
launched.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's not one of the features that they were like, we could launch it without it, but like, it's not great, so.
Give them ample feedback.
Yeah.
Exciting nonetheless.
Yeah.
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 I agree, it'll be exciting not to have to make our own visual charts and all of this stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we thinking next time, chat about AI and have brunch?
Yeah, it sounds like we need AI over brunch next time. So for those of you on the line that couldn't attend in person but are in Minnesota, we'd love to see you. Well, we're gonna shoot for like a quarterly presentation meeting, and then in between there, we'll throw in just a meet and greet and, you know, casual small group conversation somewhere here in Minneapolis. So we have really great snacks. You're missing out big time. Lots of great conversation and people here. So thanks for attending it whichever way you could, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you.
missing out.
Bye.
That's so crazy.